Zach, we kind of hinted at it a little bit. We were talking about it. Like maybe this means the Big 12 was maybe a little bit better. Does Arizona stand a chance against Texas? Well, Texas didn't really face anybody this season other than Georgia, and they lost to Georgia in both those games. And now they find themselves facing Arizona State, who has been very hot here to end the season. They blew Iowa State, I believe it was, out in the conference championship game. Cam Scadaboo has had a good end to the season. He kind of had a little bit of Heisman hype there at the end, but obviously not really on the level of Ashton Genty, which is fine. He still had a fantastic season, not taking anything away from him. But overall, at the end of the day, this Arizona State team, I think does stand a chance. But I don't know how big of a chance it is. Spoiler alert, I'm picking Texas to win this game. But if there was a team in the SEC that you told me could lose to a Big 12 team in the playoffs, I'd probably pick Texas because we haven't seen them play anybody this season. And the team that we did see them play, that is somebody they lost to both times. Your thoughts, Zach?
Ironically, people will not know this. Arizona State is the second best team that Texas has played all season, according to Sagarin.
Wow.
The team that obviously they played that's better is Georgia, who they lost to twice. Texas is 0-2 against top 10 teams in Sagarin, 3-2 against top 30. Arizona State sits at 11th, above South Carolina, above Florida, above LSU, all those good old SEC teams.
The good old boys.
Yeah, the good old boys. Now, that's not me making a pick. I'm just saying it's intriguing to me because I think something that caught my attention, just doing some base level prep, you look at their last 4 games. You don't want to look at teams in a vacuum too much, but you want to look at their trajectory. Kansas State, they dominated that game. It was 24-14. It was 24-0. And then Kansas State tacked on a couple scores late. I mean, so shut them out for a while.
Yeah.
BYU, who, PSU Jim was talking about, BYU, they were up 21-3 at half and then 28-17. That BYU scored with about 8 minutes left to make it a 1-score game, but BYU dominated Arizona State dominated. BYU had to get their way back in that game. You look at what they did to Arizona, which Arizona stinks, but 49-7. Iowa State, who's a pretty good offense, right? Like they were going up and down the field against Miami, which Miami stinks defensively.
Miami's got a bad defense.
But they held Iowa State to 341 yards. They turned them over 3 times. Obviously, Scadabo had just a ridiculous game running the ball. But I look at a team like Arizona State, and the real question for me is, can their lines just get a draw against Texas? Because that's where this game's going to be won ultimately. I think the likelihood of Texas being able to bully Arizona State on both lines of scrimmage is pretty high. But if Arizona State can get a draw, like upset alert.
Yeah. No, that was exactly where I was going to go as well. Specifically, the defensive line for Arizona State. This Texas offensive line was heralded as one of the best offensive lines in the country at the beginning of the season, and they've had some issues. They were not a Joe Moore. I don't believe they were a Joe Moore Award finalist at the end of the season. But this Arizona State defense, they have not been able to get pressure on the quarterback this season, like you might think a team like them has been able to do. Only 20 or 21 sacks on the season. That's not very high. Boise State has like 51 or something like that so far this year. And so for me, can they get pressure on Quinn Ewers is going to be one of the biggest things. Can they do something to disrupt this offensive line for Texas, whether it's with their defensive line, with their blitzing, whatever else it might be? And we know that if Quinn Ewers is pressured, he will get disrupted. Quinn Ewers, for as much hype as there was about how amazing he was and how he's going to be the first round pick, he's not lived up to that. specifically not so much because of the arm talent and that kind of stuff, but because he does get rattled,
Mhm.
and that's gonna be Texas's bugaboo. That's gonna be why Texas doesn't win the national championship this year, in my mind. Is well, number one, they're on like their fifth string running back because they had like three running backs get hurt in the preseason camps, which does suck for them. But number two, Quinn Ewers, when he gets pressured and he gets rattled, he is not the same quarterback at all. You do
Mhm.
not see the kind of calm, cool nature out of him like you do out of a Dylan Gabriel or whoever else that you kind of need to see, especially in his, what is this, his second or third year starting in college football?
I
Second
think
year?
it's second year. Yeah.
You should be able to see that from, but you haven't seen that from him this season.
Mhm.
So if Arizona State can overcome some of the issues they've had with not being able to get pressure and to get sacks, and they can start doing that against Quinn Ewers, that's going to be huge for them. But I also look at this and say, Kenny Dillingham, he's a very young coach. He's inexperienced in the playoffs. Sark was in the playoffs last year. Granted, he did lose to Washington, but he's got at least a little bit more experience in this one. I'm with you, Zach. This Arizona State team, I think, is better than some people give them credit for. But I just look at it and I say, I don't think Arizona State is there yet. I think they can be there
Yeah.
maybe someday, but just not yet. Sam Levitt, I give him all kind of props and credit. He's not turned the ball over very much this season. I think he has 3 picks on year or something like that. Like he's done a good job. But Texas's defensive line is going to get pressure on him. And he's
Yeah.
done pretty well under pressure this season, but Texas's defensive line is going to get pressure on him.
Yeah.
Is he going to start turning the ball over? Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah. I think the thing that concerns me for Arizona State is if Texas can limit Scatabo and put Levitt in obvious passing situations, I think that's when Texas's defense really feasts.
Yep.
And now I'll say this: Clemson struggled to run the ball, and Cade Klubnik was able to hit them over the top. And Arizona State has a receiver over 1,000 yards, Tyson, who is really good. But can Levitt make the same type of throws that Klubnik was making? Like Klubnik made some great throws in that
Mm-hmm.
first round game. I don't know. Like I think Levitt's really good. I don't know if he's like Klubnik's ceiling is first round pick. He hasn't played up to that,
Right.
but that's a ceiling. I don't know if that's Levitt's ceiling, and I'm not sure that their receivers can really match the athleticism on the outside with the Longhorns defensive backs.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I don't like using this term because I think it often has a negative connotation to it. And I don't give a negative connotation to it. I think some guys, this is just who they are. And I think it works for some teams. But Sam Levitt just feels like a kind of a game manager to me. The way he operates, the way he doesn't turn the
Yeah.
ball over, stuff like that. He's not somebody that's going to go out there and win the game for you like a Cam Ward will, obviously, or anything like that. But he's somebody who is going to operate the offense, operate it well, and take care of the football, which is good. But I think in a game like this, with as much talent and athleticism that Texas has, you need a game changer. And I felt like Curtis Work was that a little bit at Indiana, not after the injury as much, but and that's why I was kind of higher on Indiana, especially. And I know I'm not going to bring that topic back up, because we kind of fleshed it out last show, but that's kind of what I'm getting at here with Sam Levitt. I don't think he has the difference, or I haven't seen. I shouldn't say he doesn't have it. I haven't seen the difference maker out of him that's going to win you the game like you need to beat a team that is as highly as athletic and talented as Texas is. Because as much as crap as we give Texas, they still recruit super well. They still have
Yeah.
the best athletes on
Yeah.
their team. They haven't played anybody, but they still have some of the best athletes. And at the end of the day, unless you are just purely outclassed and everything else, like, you have the better athletes, you're most likely going to win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're spot on here. I think the other thing, and this is my feel for a number of these games, I think the layoff actually really hurts certain teams.
Mm.
Texas has already played. They're already in game shape. They're already in rhythm. Arizona State has to come in and play essentially the best lines that they've played all season. And they've got to punch up with a team that's already played, and they have not played yet, in 30 days or 24 days, something like that. And that can be a real challenge if you haven't played in a while and you're playing the best team you've played.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Score predictions. Let's talk about it, Zach. My score prediction in this one is Texas 31, Arizona State 13. What do you got?
We're similar. I've got 34-10. I just it stinks because PSU Jim said it, rooting for ASU but expecting Texas to win by 3 TDs. I think I got a little over my skis picking Clemson over Texas. And I think I just think it's going to be a similar thing. I think statistically Arizona State looks very intriguing, but I think it might be a similar thing. Although I think Texas is going to be more a suffocating win. I think Texas kind of was able to run all over Clemson. I'm not sure it's going to be like that, but I do think Texas will suffocate them. I think it'll feel like a typical SEC bully ball type of game.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario. Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily count out Arizona State completely. I think Arizona State has a chance in this game. I don't know what percentage chance I would give it, but it's unlikely. But unlikely things have happened all season long. So who knows? We'll see what happens. But both our Penn State fans here. Penn State guy and PSU Jim both said 35-14 for Texas. And John taking the score from the Ohio State-Tennessee game and putting it on this one, 42-17 Texas. I think Texas is going to win this one by at least a couple scores, and we'll see how it goes. But, possibly 3 touchdowns. We'll see. So I'm with you, Doug. I hope ASU wins, but wouldn't bet on it at all. So Penn State. Arizona State percentage chance 0-0-1. That feels like it. It feels like it. So